Hello, everybody. We're gonna paint today a landscape, a really simple landscape. Um, I take pictures of the sky every not every day, but every day that I look at the window and I see that there's a beautiful sky. I take a picture, and I like to use. I have like this kind of archive of skies that I use then to paint whatever I want to. And today I want to paint a landscape, and I'm just gonna use one of those pictures that I normally take from my home. It's a urban, let's say, landscape, but I'm not gonna paint a urban landscape. I'm just gonna use the sky, and then later I'm gonna just let's say make up any landscape. I'm gonna paint a flat landscape. Um, which could be anywhere here in Spain. There's plenty of beautiful landscapes around Madrid, and I'm just gonna paint. We call them dehesas, which is kind of like an environment in which there are many oak trees, which are really beautiful, and you get a lot of sky. Maybe there's some mountains on the background and things like that. Okay, but we're gonna focus mainly on the sky, which is the thing that I really want to talk about more. And we're gonna just make a really simple sky. I want to make kind of like a spring sky. So there's some blue in the sky, some clouds in the which are being lit by the sun, and then some other clouds which are more in the shadows, and we're gonna paint that. So I just laid some cobalt blue here on top. The paper is wet, and I'm just using a paper tissue to lift some of the paint in certain edges. I want some of the white cloud edges to be hard, but the rest is gonna be kind of blend in. It's gonna be kind of mellow. Okay. So I use cobalt blue in the beginning. Now I'm gonna use a little bit of cerulean blue as I go down. So the closer to the bottom of the paper I go, I will use a lighter mix of blue, let's say. And you can see how I'm just touching the paper with a brush. I'm just let's say painting an irregular shapes of blue that you can see through the clouds, which are gonna be on top of this mixture. Okay, the background is kind of is really light, and let's say that you can see a hint of the horizon there. There are not so many clouds in this lower part of the paint, so I'm just using the brush from one side to the other in a different way. So I use the brush on top just by touching in an irregular form the paper, and then when I went down, I just went to one side to the other because it's a different kind of environment, let's say. Now I'm preparing a mix for the cloud shadows. Okay, I'm just adding some neutral tint to the mixes of blue. So now I have a little kind of like a mix of cerulean blue, a little bit of the cobalt blue that I laid in the beginning, and some neutral tint. I also add some lavender. I really like lavender for this kind of shadows, and you get this kind of neutral gray that tilts a little bit towards blue, towards lavender, which I really like. The paper is still wet, and the brush is also, I'm using kind of like a wet mix, but it's not so, let's say, watery. So there's water in the brush, but I have a paper tissue on the other hand, and I kind of dried it up a little bit before touching the paper. I don't want it to be too with too much water, because if I do that, it's gonna open too much when I go to the paper, and I don't need that. I need the clouds to more or less stay in place. I want them to open a bit, but I don't want them to, let's say, to bleed so much that you lose the shape of the shadows. Okay. And here I am just making kind of like a horizon I am using a little bit of just almost pure lavender in order to cool it off. Anything that we lay out in the paper, since the paper is still a little bit wet, anything that we lay, it's gonna dry lighter, right? So just be wary of that. You need to be kind of a little bit bolder than you might think just by looking at the paper, because you know it's gonna dry. It's gonna dry lighter. I'm just adding some water here to the horizon. I don't want it to be a strong horizon. I want it to kind of blend a little bit with the background. I don't want a strong edge here, but still, I am not wetting the whole paper. I am not painting on the whole paper because I want the ground to be a separate, let's say, thing. Now I'm preparing a little bit darker mixture. You see, I prepared the mix and I also dried the brush a little bit. I don't want it to be, I want this to be a kind of like a dry mix, let's say. Not too strong, but not too much content of water. I want these clouds to be kind of like closer to us, so they will be stronger than the ones that we laid on the background. And you see how I'm just painting in this kind of irregular fashion. The paper is still wet, so anything that I lay on the paper is gonna open a little bit. And I just touch the paper in this kind of irregular way, and I worry that I leave gaps in between, because there's many light getting through these clouds. So I worry to kind of hint a shape of a cloud that it's not filling up the whole paper. Some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. The closer we go to the ground, the smaller the clouds are, because they're kind of further away. And since we left some white on the paper, you can see how like there's a lot of light in this kind of in this style, right? You can get a really lightful sky if you are like you have a clear strategy in regards to how to paint this. So basically, anytime you paint clouds, you more or less set up the light and the mood of the light on the first wash, and then on the second you kind of start painting the clouds. But the first layer, the first wash will determine the mood of the sky, and you have to be wary of that. So if you need some to preserve a lot of light, it's good to have that in mind, so you don't go with too much pigment on the first wash. Just be strategic about that. You can also see how since the clouds on top are bigger than the clouds on the bottom, you kind of immediately create depth. You create a perspective, and you understand that the clouds that are on the lower part of the painting are further away. This is also important. All right, now we're gonna start laying the ground of this imagined landscape, let's say. Um, I start off with some quinacridone gold, and I mix it with just a little bit of perylene green. And by mixing the quinacridone gold with this perylene green, you get this kind of yellowish green, let's say, which works really great for this kind of landscape. Now I'm adding a little bit of perylene brown to the mix just to warm it up. And it's still green, but it's starting to tilt towards sienna, let's say. And why do I do this? Because whenever I'm making this kind of grass fields, if I warm them up as I go down, it feels like you're giving them some depth. And sometimes it also happens with this kind of grass fields and whatnot, that the closer you are to the ground, you can actually see a little bit of earth in between the leaves, right, in between the grass. But if you look at the horizon, it looks greener than if you look to the ground closer to you. So that's also a reason why whenever I'm painting these kind of grass fields, I try to make them greener on the foreground, on the background, sorry, and a little bit warmer on the foreground. Now I just mixed a little bit of lavender with perylene green. I'm gonna add a little bit more lavender to the mix. I want to suggest the idea of distant vegetation here. This could be on top of a hill or something like that. And the further we are in the background, the bluer or the colder anything looks, right? There's more atmosphere in between the viewer and the object that we're painting. So when you're painting distant vegetation, it's always good to have these kind of mixes in mind, no? Some lavender mixed with the perylene green works great. And as I'm coming closer to the viewer, let's say, I add more perylene green to the mix, and that way you kind of create this depth just by using different colors. Slight variation in color helps you create this kind of depth feeling in your painting, right? So again, use colder colors on the background and slightly warmer colors on the foreground. It will make your painting look just with a little bit more depth than if you just use flat colors. Now on this part of the painting, I want to kind of build contrast between the light sky and the ground, so it's a great place to put this kind of a little bit more prominent trees. These are oak trees, special oak trees that you find in the Spanish dehesas, in the Spanish countryside. They're normally in small groups or isolated trees, and they normally are really visible from the distance. They look dark. They have this kind of dark green that they make them really pop up in the landscape, and I really like them. And now I'm just using the same mixture just to touch different places here and there to create a little bit of texture. I want the background, this kind of the edge between the sky and the ground, not to be too, let's say, flat. No, I'm trying to build a little bit of contrast between the ground and the sky, but without separating them completely, right? And also the colder further trees that I laid also in the background help me tell that story as well. In the distance, the ground and the sky, they kind of blend in, and in the foreground, the ground and the sky, they are kind of separated by these darker and more prominent trees, let's say. So it's a game of different kind of edges, different kinds of transitions between different elements in the painting. Some of the edges are hard, some of the edges are soft. and you just play with that in order to build interest in the painting. Now I am just constructing what could be an electrical tower, and I am using a mix of neutral tint. The mix is really dry. I'm using a small brush, and there's almost no water in it, because I don't want to this what I'm laying on the painting to open at all. I just want to kind of use the brush as I'm using a pen, let's say. I'm dry brushing this tower in the painting, and it helps me connect the sky with the ground, and also to kind of build a little bit of interest in this area of the painting where there's more contrast. And also it allows me to break the horizontality of the painting, right? And also I'm gonna add the electrical lines now, and it will bring into the painting yet another kind of direction and line, which will also help me create depth. You will see how this let's say this painting it was really horizontal, and just by adding these elements you kind of break the horizontality a bit, right? There's maybe a second tower further away, and the lines continue towards that second tower. Maybe there are some birds just resting on top of these electrical lines. You see that a lot in the countryside, and whenever I see them, I just stare at them for a little while. I don't know, it brings me, let's say, kind of like solace, like we are like invading their world with these human-made elements, but yet they still use them in a way for their benefit. And I like when human-made element can offer something to the natural world, and in this sense I think birds are really using these cables many times in order to, I don't know, to rest in a safe place, let's say. And I kind of like that. I think about that when I see them. Maybe there are other birds flying around, I don't know. This is just a made-up landscape, and the main goal here is to have fun, right? I'm just adding a little bit of texture into the ground. There's some few touches here and there of this darker mix. It will, I don't know, I touch the paper with a brush here and there, and it looks like there's a little stone or a little bush. I don't know, a little bush. It's whatever. And this is it. This is done. I mean, it's the main goal of this painting was to show you an effective and easy way to make a sky, and also a nice way to make a kind of like a grass field like I did, and then build some contrast with the trees and have fun. Have a good one.